We're live. Hello,
We are
everyone.
live.
Welcome to Indie Dev Chat episode 26. Today I'm here with Rob Game Shack, or just Rob, you know.
Oh, Rob's the
Yeah.
warrior.
And yeah, today we're actually, rather than talking to a developer, we're going to be talking about someone that uh, helps the indie development community. And I've seen you a lot on Twitter. I've been around for a fair amount of time to be able to see a lot of the stuff you do for us. And yeah, I thought it would actually be quite interesting to have something externally rather than just developers talking about all developer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be an interesting stream, this one. We've got some really cool topics planned out today, so it's going to be really good. But yeah, in case you are coming from Spotify or any other podcasting platforms, I'll quickly introduce you. So my name's Matt. I'm a 17-year-old game developer. I've been doing it for 4 years now, and yeah, Rob, would you like to tell
Yeah, I'm
everyone
Rob.
who you are?
I'm a nearly 40-year-old web developer. That's depressingly old. But yeah, I've been making websites for a very long time now. I've been a developer myself, so I mostly write in JavaScript. At the moment, I've done a lot in PHP, which people will squirm at, I'm sure. And yeah, just basically, I'm a web developer who loves programming, loves development, and I really love games. So I'm obviously a lifetime gamer from
Yeah,
back in the day of retro gaming, which is
yeah,
called retro gaming these days.
yeah.
See, more references to my age. But anyway, there's a yeah. I love it of indie dev. I love the fact that we can just download a bit of software and
Yeah, and then
create something.
yeah,
And I love seeing people's energy and creativity around these topics. It's just like the ideas that people come up with are just some of them are so bizarre and so different, and it
yeah,
makes the game really enjoyable.
yeah.
So that's why I love indie dev, really.
Yeah, yeah. No, I would agree with you there. That's some of the stuff that inspired me to do it myself, like seeing other indie games and seeing how like amazing their work was, it is definitely very nice having that sort of drive in the background, like knowing that someone else is working on something alongside you, like not working on the same project and you're not in a competition, but you're like
But you are
working. Yeah,
really
yeah.
gonna win.
Yeah, I'm gonna win. No, but it is really awesome. Like, just I especially like it on Twitter. The Twitter community is absolutely fantastic. I think it's one of the best game dev communities in in the I'd say
Yeah,
in the whole industry.
it's always very scary to put yourself out there,
Yeah,
and I think the reception that you get on Twitter
yeah,
from other devs, especially, is very nice.
yeah.
It's very good and very supportive. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think Twitter's very welcoming to newcomers. Like, if there's I'm not sure if this is for everything, but at least for game development, it is it's very welcoming to new developers, and it nobody really nobody's judgmental over anyone, and it's really great to see, because a lot of the time, normal Twitter is quite it's not as civilized,
No,
um,
and normal Twitter is a bit of a hole in some cases,
yeah,
and it's full of a lot of opinions,
yeah,
and
yeah,
people
exactly.
are quite aggressive. But in this instance, I haven't actually on this account. I haven't actually found anyone that has been particularly nasty.
Mm.
But yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I mean, how long have you been promoting indie developers for now?
Well, my account told me I was 2 years old.
Yeah,
So I started the Rob's Game Track account probably 2 years ago then, if that's what it says it was. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, to be honest. I didn't know where I was going with it. I just thought I'll start following some indie devs and um, start, just retweeting and sort of having a look at their stuff and trying to sort of see what they're doing. Plus, I really like the idea of making my own game. So obviously, I've been learning Unity and learning Godot and lots of different like kind of phaser JavaScript based engines and things like that. So it's just been an interesting place to be and have a look at and see what people are doing.
Yeah.
And I kind of it just kind of kept going, and then I started featuring people every week or their projects.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got to the point where I thought, well, I'll make a website then, because I'm a web developer. I've got I can make a website.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was trying out React at the time, which is a JavaScript framework.
Mm-hmm.
So I started getting into that and experimenting with React, which was helping me with my job, and it just snowballed really. And then here I am with a website, and just enjoying promoting people really.
Yeah.
There wasn't really any plan or any direction. It just sort of ended up to be in this point at the moment.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time when you're starting off something new, you never really think it's gonna expand as much as it will. Like when you get to that point, you're just sort of like, that's brilliant, but I never really intended it. Like
I definitely wanted to help. I could see that there was a lot of indie devs who don't really know how to enter into sort of marketing or just trying to get your game out there. And I think it was not necessarily down to not knowing what to do, just the confidence levels I think were quite low. People were quite, well, this is my project, and I know it's not great, but
yeah.
And I've seen some projects which are like the highest quality game processes you've ever seen, game mechanics and graphics, and people are still like, it's all right, I could do better. And I'm like, seriously, guy, I would play this right now. So it's been I felt kind of like these people need a bit of a rallying cry really, to keep them going through the process of making the game, because it's hard. Game dev is really hard.
Yeah.
And so people need the motivation to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I would definitely agree with you there. Back when I started, I was very much like that. I didn't really think that my work was that as good as I guess as others had thought it would be. I suppose when it's yourself, you sort of don't really value yourself enough. I think it's the whole I think it's because there's been so much saturation of the phrase don't overvalue yourself in a way. Don't try and make it so you're don't brag basically. It's seen as a sometimes a bad thing.
There is value in that sense.
Yeah, but I think
I think it's having a realistic view on your skill set is something that takes a long time for people to get to.
Yeah.
And for you as a 17-year-old, you're in a very good position if you're thinking, okay, no, my stuff's okay and I can actually do this and progress. It took me until I was 30 until I started thinking that, oh right, I can actually do things now.
Yeah.
Because life is pretty hard and people struggle, and you're your own worst critic. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to be really kind of pragmatic with it all and try and make things kind of progress.
Mm-hmm.
and believe in yourself, which is really hard to do, really.
Yeah, no, it is. I think imposter syndrome is it's a big defeating factor for a lot of developers. A lot of newbie developers, especially not even newbie developers. I've seen developers that have been doing it for quite a few years. They've given up because they don't think their work's good enough and stuff. They don't really see themselves as they don't value themselves, and I think that's just because, again, going into a new community, it is really weird. It's really strange, sort of stepping your toes in. You're like, oh, there's a lot of people on here, and
that guy's really good, and that guy's really good.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then you don't look at yourself. I think that's the issue. I think it's less of the fact that they don't like their work. I think it's more the fact that they don't look at their work from a perspective that they look at other people. I think when you look at bigger developers, or not necessarily bigger developers, but developers that are that have a bigger following than you, chances are you're gonna be like, oh wow, it's a great game and everything. But you spend so much time looking at everyone else's without looking at your own work and valuing your own work. And I think that is actually the problem with it, is less of the fact that they don't believe in themselves, it's more the fact that they don't give themselves enough time to believe in themselves, if that makes sense.
Also, you see everything as your own work. You know the code behind it. You know the corners you've cut. You know that you might not have you might have not have done that in the best way. You know that you might have caused an issue further down the line, or you've caused some kind of bug or memory leak or whatever, and you're panicking. You spend hours on the artwork trying to get it perfect when it was perfect for everyone else, like 5 or 6 hours ago. You're still there looking at that last pixel that's just feels like it's in the wrong place, and you can't get your head around the fact that it feels like it's in the wrong place. And I think a lot of people beat themselves up on that. And I find it in my normal job, one of the biggest problems I have with people on web development and design, for example, is they're trying to push the design to somewhere that is like, it's constantly evolving, and they're saying, oh, we've got to change that, we've got to move that, what if we change that? I'm like, you've got to stop, because people don't care. People don't care. They come to your website as long as it works, it's quick, it has a decent navigation system, and they get to where they want to go. That's all they really care about. I mean, how many times do you go to Amazon or any other website and think, oh, the design's really nice here?
Yeah.
You don't. You go, I want my socks, or I want my, whatever it is you want to buy. And that's how it works. In game development, it's not much dissimilar in that quality aspect.
Yeah.
As long as you're producing quality and you're not just producing rubbish. I mean, you've got to have a level of awareness about of quality and game mechanic quality. As long as you can get that balance and you're aware of it, then I think you can progress things better.
Yeah.
And you're more aware of yourself.
Yeah.
But it's imposter syndrome strikes me every day. Every time I speak to anyone who's a web developer, I'm like, oh, I'm a web developer. And I've been doing it for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm still thinking, oh, wow. But the problem is, again, you're always learning. Every day you're learning something. So you never feel like you're at the end of the goal, or there's always someone who knows more than you in a certain subject. And again, I think that's the same thing with development across the platform. So, you've got a guy who's been doing Unity longer than you.
Mm-hmm.
So instantly you feel like you're an imposter, when actually you might know something that he doesn't know, or
exactly
vice versa, even if it's just a little nugget, but it might help him. And it's having that confidence to be able to go, well, what if you do it like this? Or, and not having and if someone comes back and says, well, I do it like this, not feeling like it's an attack, or not feeling like you're being put down. And it's a rocky road to traverse.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would agree. I think people spend too much time. I think as a developer, you want to be a perfectionist. Like, you want your game to be perfect, because you think everyone's gonna care. Yeah, as you say, and in actuality, like, the chances of a gamer being like, let the pixels off by, I don't know, whatever it is. The chances of people really getting angry and picking up their pitchforks is like...
Well, they wouldn't. They wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
They wouldn't. They'd go, oh, this is a cool character, I kind of like him. And they, even that pixel there might have actually have made them like him more for some reason.
Yeah.
And, it's you don't know. There's a guy called Gary Vee who talks a lot about marketing and connecting with social media. Pretty famous guy on the internet, and he said something the other day that made me think, yeah, that's pretty accurate. That perfectionism is actually insecurity in disguise.
Yes.
And I think that's pretty spot on, actually, because you're so insecure about what everyone else thinks about this. It has to be perfect. Well, actually, it doesn't.
Yeah, no.
And that's the key. I mean, it's the way you've got to look at it, and then you can go forward. You just got to keep pushing yourself to improve. I think also, like, people calling themselves a wannabe, or it's also it's quite psychologically damaging for the person. So
yeah, no.
I can see the humility in it, and I can see where it's coming from, because I think I would write like that. if I'm going to describe myself as a wannabe developer or a developer in training, it's like, well, no, if you're making something, if you're doing stuff, then you're actually a developer.
Yeah.
And you should just call yourself that.
Yeah.
If you're
exactly.
an artist, you're not a wannabe artist, you're just an artist. And you might not have found your style, you might not have found your project, you might not have found whatever it is, but you're still
doing
developing.
Art. Yeah.
You're still an artist. You're still, you're still drawing, you're still making, still creating. So I think if people stop, putting themselves down as well, like that, it does feel like a bit of a sneaky stab in the side, really, to sort of say to someone, well, I'm actually just, I'm just trying, I'm doing my best. I want to do it one day when I'm good enough. So actually, you're pretty good now. Just
and
believe it.
To be fair, everyone wants to be the best initially, right? That's
of course.
That's just how it's gonna be, But I think it's important to know that actually, like, you can have a goal in mind. It is good to have a goal in mind, but like at the same time, you've got to remember that goal could easily change as well. Like, because right when you start developing, chances are you might overscope for
all the time.
It's gonna happen a lot. So when you overscope, that goal can always change. Like you can say, oh, I want to make an RPG, but then suddenly you're like after you get that skill and after you get that knowledge, you'll realize actually, you can't make an RPG on your own. Well, you could, but like most of the time, an RPG is a very, very difficult thing to do. So, you'll lower the bar, and then, even then, working towards that goal. If you're working towards a goal in development, then you're developing towards that goal. So,
exactly.
I think that is, I think that pinpoints it quite well. Like when you're developing, you're developing towards the goal. There you go. I think
everyone experiences that kind of Dunning-Kruger effect at the start of just when you think you're going to get into development and you haven't done anything, and you get into like this moment of, right, I've downloaded Unity, I'm going to make COD, I'm going to make the next Battlefield, or I'm going to make the next Diablo, and you're like, you kind of jump into it with both feet, and you're really kind of excited about it, and then you realize actually what these guys do in these AAA studios and why they've got such a big team behind them, and why it takes so long to make.
Yeah,
it's because it's actually a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's more behind the scenes than you'd think.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I think that it's sort of like, when you're dipping your toes in the water, that phrase. I feel like right at the start, rather than dipping your toes, you just like dive into the ocean, and you're like, oh, okay, and then you swim back up.
I can never do this.
Yeah, I think it's important to give yourself leniency in that regard. Like the point of, you're not gonna be the next, I don't know, Hideo Kojima in like one day. That's not gonna happen. But maybe eventually you could be like him.
Yeah.
But just work towards that rather than working towards being him now. And also, don't really work towards. I wouldn't really work towards being somebody, because I think it's good to have, it's good to have role models, but like, don't try and be them. Try and be your own person at the same time, because then because that's when you start losing yourself. I think when
for sure.
When you're trying to be somebody like that you're not, it's super.
Well, you're
important
still comparing yourself to other people, aren't you? You're still comparing, and you've still got that imbalance of comparing between you and someone else, even if they're a worse developer than you or a better, it doesn't matter. You're still comparing your work, and you're still comparing when you should be focusing on your work and appreciating everyone else's.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah,
but I was going to say mistakes like that. Mistakes are positive, and that's another thing that people need to understand. Is like when you do jump into that kind of like pit of making the next Diablo. You've got to realize that it was a mistake. You coming out of it, you've got to learn from that mistake. You've got to learn from others, and I think the best person to do that from on the indie game, I would say indie game in kind of is Sean Murray from Hello Games, because they made a load of cool little games, and then jumped into No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
And then it all got hyped, and they jumped into it like full on.
Yeah,
and
then
we saw what happened.
Yeah, we know what happened, but now they've redeemed themselves.
But now,
yeah,
exactly the way he pulled out of that and pulled it back together and kept the team and kept it going and pushed through some terrible stuff. I mean, like it was a hard time.
Yeah, I mean,
but
you know,
he's a very inspiring figure for an indie game developer to look at and think, okay, if this little man who's just a guy likes making games can do it, then why not me?
Yeah. And Rob Lang actually, he just put in the chat, isn't it necessary to throw yourself in at the deep end because you can't possibly know what's involved? You kind of have to fail to know where the limits are. And I think that is definitely true. And I think, Sean Murray is a good example of that because, he jumped into this huge project, released it when it wasn't near its completion. I played the game when it wasn't near its completion, and you could tell it wasn't. I didn't really think it was a bad game per se, but I didn't think it was completed enough to release as a full game.
It wasn't with the promises they sort of that leaked out around it. He kind of got like the guy got caught up in the hype train himself, I think, of it, and he does explain it, but it's a very interesting story to read and an amazing recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today they actually released
another update,
Origins, which is just again.
It's the content updates that they do aren't small either. I think that's
they're free.
They're free. It's crazy. I think he's definitely one of the most redeemed developers and definitely someone everyone can look up to when they're, especially when you stoop low, because you're gonna have the points where you do stoop low and you're like, oh god, what am I doing this for? And then you realize, everyone has those moments. Even like huge developers, AAA companies, they have their faults. Some of the CODs I'm sure people don't like, and some of the CODs they love. I think that's just sort of also a big thing about development as a whole is that I think the industry's changing so much. It's changing, like it just changes all the time. You can, a genre may be really, really like sought after now, but in 2 years' time it could be completely like right at the bottom of the list. We saw roguelikes.
Battle Royale.
yeah.
Battle Royale can go to the. I hate Battle Royale.
Yeah. Battle Royale, that started that must have been about 2 years ago now, and that's
I can't. It just keeps coming back.
I know.
It just keeps coming back. I'm like, oh, please stop! I can't do these things.
Yeah. It is interesting. I think it's a but I think on the other hand, it's also like when you see gamers and stuff that like Battle Royale and all those competitive games, they are at each other's throats about like the smallest things, and I think it is quite interesting seeing that, especially like I don't know, with Fall Guys, for example. They haven't. I don't think they've released it on Xbox yet, and I've seen people like getting like really angry about it and stuff, and it is it's crazy. I mean, I don't know. I think it's important to realize that as developers we can't make a perfect game no matter how hard we try, because at least someone out there isn't going to enjoy your game, because if everyone enjoyed it, I'm pretty sure you'd be the richest man alive. Not everyone's going to enjoy it, so
no,
I think
there's people completely. You can't please everyone, and the passion that people have to threaten people. Like Sean Murray, for example, their team got death threats and and things like that. The police were called on multiple occasions. It's crazy how. I mean, I understand the anger of people in that sense. They spent some money and they didn't get what they asked for, but
I
threatened someone's life over it.
Yeah, that's
maybe just ask for a refund aggressively. I don't know.
Yeah, don't threaten someone's life because they made a mistake. Yeah, but I think it is interesting because I don't think I don't think developers really realize like they only realize it from a gamer's perspective. Like right when you start, you've played games. A lot of developers, well, I should hope almost all of the developers have played a lot of games. And when they get into it and they have this sort of outlook that isn't actually like a game dev outlook. It's more like it's more. I don't really know how to explain it. It's like it's a gamer's outlook. They look onto like their own games as if they were a gamer and stuff, and like I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it is interesting. And I think that's just something that I think as people start talking about it more and more, and there's more sort of things they're talking about, like imposter syndrome more and more, mental health and stuff more and more. I think it's super important that people they do keep themselves updated with that stuff because it is a very overlooked thing, even though it's a very big thing. I think like people don't really want to sort of, I guess, accept the fact that it exists. Like I think people, right when you start, especially, you're very stubborn, and you think that
Yeah.
you can get through anything. And when you hear people saying that, like I don't know, you make loads of projects in the space of 2 weeks and you hate all of them and stuff, and people are like, oh no, that won't happen to me. But it's the naivety, and I think it's very important that everyone talks about the implication of game development before you really really get into it. Like when you're first starting off, it doesn't really occur to you too much. But when you start like really getting into it, it's super important that you realize that those things are okay and that they are very common. I think
Yeah.
so many people start beating themselves up about it if they like aren't doing enough work for it, or they are, they're not making the best stuff and whatever it is. I think that's just that's your body. You need to listen to your body. You need to take breaks when you need it, rather than working your socks off just to show off your projects to whoever it is. People are gonna stay around, so you can share them whenever.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not a strict timeline for it. People tweet stuff all the time. People make YouTube videos all the time. There's nothing stopping you from doing it another day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in one of the topics, one of them is, do you need a website? So would you like to give your thoughts on websites?
Yeah. So websites are a beast of a thing, right? So you're a small time developer. You've got maybe someone else you're working with. Maybe you're a solo dev. Website is just going to kill you. So
Yeah.
I would say to you, unless you've got a website guy who's going to do all the website stuff, do not get a website. There are much better places to promote and have your game, and probably the most important thing is to get a Facebook page, because everyone is already on Facebook. And if you've got a website, you're trying to get people to go to your website. If you're on Facebook, that's where people are already, and so therefore you can then push the product, as to say, or at least get people to join your page that way. And it's a lot easier to connect with a user base if you're using a Facebook page as a base. If you're going to be releasing on a platform like Steam and things like that, obviously you want to get your Steam page set up once you're ready to get your Steam page set up. But yeah, Facebook page is definitely I would say probably the most important social media platform next to Instagram. And Instagram, although is currently very slow to be able to get follows and things like that, so trying to grow on Instagram has actually got a lot harder than it used to be.
Yeah.
So probably the best place to use Instagram is in the Reels section currently, the one that's been trying to take over a bit of TikTok's space, because there seems to be a good algorithm in it for delivering content to people who are within your group of people that you'd like to see the things you want. But also, there's a load of other social media platforms you can use. There's also my website, which is the idea was to be able to set up a place where people can put their game on, put their team on, and have it all just done and there. And all the SEO is sorted out by my site. Everything is done and handled, so stuff just doesn't. You don't have to worry about it. You can go back and update a bit of text now and again, but it's set. It's there. You don't have to worry about kind of trying to. Because figuring out a layout, figuring out all of that kind of stuff is an immense task. And if you're not used to web development, and if you're not used to web design, even using tools like WordPress.com or Wix, which is free, they have free options, it's still extremely, extremely hard to get right. And for you to, it's another thing for you to worry about, another thing for you to stress over, and another thing for you to spend hours twiddling when you could just be making your game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. You've got to don't spend all your energy on a website that technically for your project isn't required.
Yeah.
That would, unless you've got a guy who's going to I'll do the website for you, then that's fine. But yeah, there's so much work involved. It's just not practical. But if you were to go down that route, I would say have a look at WordPress.com and Wix, because they are free. They're for a free service. They have all their kind of like the complicated SEO part of it all is kind of set up already.
Yeah.
So all you need to do is find a theme, and then on Wix you just have to basically move boxes around and build a site, and then you've got a website.
Yeah.
I'd say just because it's in that tweaking where all the time is lost, because then you're trying to think, what do I have to write? What pages do I have to have, and all that kind of stuff. So keep it simple. Make a Facebook page. Get yourself Instagram and Twitter, and I'd definitely say TikTok is pretty huge at the moment, and something that you can connect with a lot of people.
Interesting. With Twitter, I've been around on Twitter for 3 years, maybe or so, and these last, I'd say 6 months or so, growth has slowed down quite substantially than what it used to be, and I think it's probably having the Instagram effect, because Instagram, initially it started super, like, I remember a lot of people like growing exponentially on Instagram, and Twitter, I think sometimes you can get really lucky with Twitter. I think it's sort of Twitter is a very luck-based one, especially at the start, I think, because the algorithm doesn't really favor you if you're really small right at the beginning.
The other bridge is the people you're following. What happens with Twitter and other things is you're making connections with these people, and you're kind of becoming friends with a lot of these people.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where you're talking to the same people all the time because you like them, you have a connection with them. So you're not really pushing outside of your boundary of followers.
Yeah.
And people you follow. But also you've got another problem. It's making the break from having indie devs to having people who are going to want to buy and play your game.
Yeah.
Because a lot of indie devs aren't necessarily massive gamers. They love games, but their love is actually in making the games. And trying to get yourself an audience is the hardest part, is trying to jump across from like into the other way. And Nomin said that he has a private Facebook and Instagram, but he thinks Facebook is very outdated. I would agree. I don't really like Facebook. I don't actually have a Facebook kind of page. I actually just made one the other day just because, of need, out of need more than anything, because of my job. But unfortunately, Facebook is still the monster. Facebook is the place where if you create a page,
and Twitter.
You've got billions of people there, literally, that you can connect to or have the potential of connecting to. And also Facebook ads, if you wanted to stop paying for advertisement, which is not dirty and terrible, if you're pushing a product which is good and you're using ads sensibly. is actually a really good way to connect or for people to find your product. So it's, again, as much as it pains me to say it, because I don't really like the fact that Facebook is so big and so monstrous.
I think
yes.
using that to your advantage is, it's pretty
You want to
important.
get your game out there and seen, and you want to build an audience, it's probably the easiest way to do it, because it's just a click on a follow button for people on Facebook, and then they've got it in their feed. And that's just amazing, because they go to their Facebook on their phone, on the app, on the website, and it's just always people are checking Facebook. It's a ridiculous amount of times people are logging into Facebook every day. So yeah. But yeah, hashtags are a great way to explore new people as well.
I'd definitely say that more visual social media apps like TikTok, Reddit, and Imgur, but all three of those are very visual oriented, and I think using that to your advantage is very important. And Twitter, Instagram, well, not Instagram, obviously that's very very visual, but Twitter, that seems to me like it is more of a general social media. It can do the visual stuff, and it can do the just normal plain text and stuff. So I think using the ones that specializes in visuals is definitely a good way to grow, because Twitter, I feel like it's much easier to scroll past images and stuff, because they're a little bit harder to catch your eye sometimes. And
but they're very, very important on Twitter, I think, though, because if you don't have an image on a tweet, even if it's not a tweet about anything image related, if you don't put an image on it, it doesn't catch people as much. I've noticed. I think from what I've seen of the people posting content of their games, for example, the best responses are from people who post GIFs of short snippets of their game that you see moving as you scroll past, and so therefore you watch, and then you're like, oh right, that looks really cool, and then for you're in. And some really good people to look at for doing that is like Temple Door Games, who are making Swordcery. It's really good. Games by Milu as well. He's making the kind of FX0 style racer at the moment, and made Void Ship. And you've got Anna from 2 for 2, who have just done the Kickstarter for Capia, their point-and-click adventure game. She was really good at Twitter, because what she was doing was showing the modeling of the items as items in the game. So she was doing 3D modeling, recording it, and putting it up on Twitter. Really kind of just showing the start of the modeling, the middle, a very kind of time sliced thing to the end product. And then you saw this really cool modeled end product, and like people were just like, this is awesome. We love it. So then it got shared a lot, got passed around a lot. So they're I think that helped their project a lot with what they did. And then another guy is like the Falconeer dev, who's made the Falconeer, which has just exploded, to be honest. And we went back to the start of his development process. It was literally like just a bird on a screen, and it was flying through some clouds, and there weren't particularly great clouds, and then it just developed, and you saw this progress, and he posted updates, and then he got he's got a massive following now, in the sense that it's going to be a very successful game. So it's a good way to do that, to make sure you've got like good snippets of very soundbitey, very quick, very punch someone in the face with an image type. Oh wow, that's really cool, and then people are hooked. It's really hard to use words to get people to read those words, even though Twitter's like very small in their words. But yeah, it needs to be quick and kind of like a real grab someone's hair and sort of say, look at my game quick, and it'll give them a good kind of. I think Salt Castle do a really good job of that as well, with the Alpaca All Stars game they've just brought out, but they also did for Chapeau, which was their hat swapping game. Very, very fun little party game. And then with the Alpaca All Stars, it's just colourful, it's crazy, it looks amazingly fun, and they've just managed to capture little parts of it on few seconds of just a gameplay.
Yeah.
And it's just there, and people are, I'm in. Give me, where do I sign up? So it works. So yeah, I think images are really important. I think that's where I think TikTok gives that soundbite where you can actually connect with someone as well. So you can show your screen, you can show a bit of development, you can say, this is what I'm doing today, and you can give like a 1 minute, not even 1 minute if you don't want to, but up to 1 minute kind of slice of your development process and where you're up to. And people get connected to that, people enjoy it, and people want to see where you're going with it and want to follow it, and they become invested, and then they pass it on to their friends and such like. So it's a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw, the game Shotgun Farmers. I think.
Yeah.
That one on TikTok. That was one of the first ones, and apparently that really blew up. So yeah, I think taking advantage of new social medias is a really good way of growing, because you're kind of pioneering the social media platform, and
if
I think
you get on it before anyone else, that's gold.
Exactly, you're gonna get really far, and I think that is definitely a problem with the platforms that have been around for more than, some of them 10 years or more. I think with those, they've got so many users, and it is really difficult to get noticed. So make sure that you're getting like out there on the new platforms. I think just taking advantage of those, because you never really know, like if a new social media platform is gonna just blow up, you don't know, and if it blows up, then you're gonna be really lucky with it, because I think the algorithm would definitely favor you, because you've got so many posts out before everyone else, and then when everyone gets on the platform, you're in their recommended and everything, and I think it is definitely, especially in a sort of lifestyle that we have now, where we're very social media driven, and so many platforms are being like created, like there's so many each year and stuff, and I think just making the most out of it I think it's just the best way of really growing. And I think especially if you do take advantage of those, then I think you've also got that sort of a bit more of an empathy of the users on the platform, because if there's a lower user base, then you're gonna be prioritized quite a lot, because you'll stand out from the crowd. It's a lot easier to stand out when there's not loads of people. And
TikTok did start off as just kind of dancing and weird stuff, but it's really grown into an amazing platform. But the other thing about TikTok is they've actually got a content creator. So it works on the same kind of revenue kind of calculation as YouTube does. So for every 1,000 views, you get 0.01 cent or whatever it is. So you can actually make a little bit of money if you manage to get to a certain point. So it might make a couple of pound a week, but but it's that kind of it's an interesting thing. Also, I've noticed on TikTok the algorithm doesn't necessarily push top people all the time. It will give you people who are kind of related to your age, your place, who you are, and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of it tries to place you with people. So for you making content, it could be very good in that sense. You're being placed with people who might be able to work with you. Not work with you. Look at your projects and be interested by them. So definitely something that's.
I think that's definitely a big difference between things like Twitter and Instagram. That is from likes, shares, and all that sort of stuff.
I really find it hard breaking across the Twitter into, like, if I'm trying to promote someone's game.
It's really
trying
difficult.
To aim it at gamers and trying to find that right hashtag. I probably need to just do a bit more research into it, really, but it really just gets lost in the
sea of Twitter.
Twitter, which is everywhere.
And especially if you have like 1,000 followers or something, it's you've got their feeds coming up, and then so many users are following so many people, so that's always
Yeah,
going to
it's
constantly
fine.
grow. So, that they'll see that before they see the other stuff, and it is a really sad thing. Like, I think retweeting and liking and stuff, like, whilst it can feature in your feed, if it's not directly from you, it has a less chance of being noticed. And I think a lot of people, if something is retweeted, they don't really look at it as much. I think, like, if you see something retweeted, there's a lot of times where people are just like, oh, it's just a casual retweet. Especially if you do retweeting often, it's something that I think it definitely poses a bit of an issue.
Yeah, for sure. And Rob, what was he saying? TikTok. Yeah, just lean into the camera. It's just code. Fix it. Yeah, there's actually quite a few funny developer TikToks on there that I've sort of picked up as I've gone, and they've done some really cool kind of like what it's like to be in the industry, and you know, having your code go for review and all those kind of things are just are kind of in jokes to developers really.
Yeah.
And so it's really kind of fun to have. There's quite a lot of funny stuff on TikTok for that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. So it makes me laugh.
Yeah, I think TikTok, it's definitely whilst there's a lot of controversy surrounding it, I think it's good to leverage it as much as you can now, just because you can.
Yeah.
What's stopping you? Like, other than not making an account, that's it.
It's time as well. I mean, like, again, it's the same with the web page. Why am I saying as a web developer don't get a website? It's because it's time. It just takes so much time.
Yeah.
It's just like it'll just drain your life, and you'll be worried about it, and then you'll forget about it, and then it won't get updated, and then it'll look awful.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's kind of
exactly. Yeah, and I think
like people start these game blogs on their website.
Yeah.
And I've noticed a few of them because I've been putting them on my website, and then like the last one was from 2017.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened?
Oh no, I'm still working on my game. I just didn't talk about
exactly,
it. Yeah.
You didn't blog it. But if they did, then it'd rank up with Google because they'd be getting fresh content on the page, and they've got a load more content there for Google to look through, and it's a good thing to do, and it's hard work.
But I think if you get it, then perfect. But I think it's time. I think it's important to dedicate a certain amount. Well, no, it's very important to dedicate a certain amount of time to marketing. I think people don't really they don't value it enough, and it's extremely vital that you actually dedicate a little bit of time to marketing yourself, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's vital because you need to get there if you want to. Well, if you want to be a game dev who gets his game out there and makes money and makes it a job, then it's the most. If you're just doing it for fun because you like making games, then
that's really your choice. Yeah,
that's whatever. But if you manage to get it out there and show it to people, like what was a Townscaper? Townscaper was a complete experiment. The guy was just literally the Bad North guy was literally just going, oh look.
I remember seeing it, like the early versions of it. Yeah.
Everyone was like mad. Like, this is insane. I want to play it. I was like, what? It's just you're literally putting houses in a puddle.
It's like, oh yeah.
Everyone just wants it.
I think developers are surprised about what people want. They want different, and they want stuff that you can't, like, that a AAA company wouldn't make. I think that's a big part of it. Like, AAA companies aren't going to go around making a game about placing towns. They're not going to do that because, again, that's the whole financial thing. It would be dangerous for them to do that. And you
can make little gardens. You can make gardens. Little gardens. Birds.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I can see your enthusiasm through the camera. Yeah. No, it is.
But he managed to develop that and show it to people like that, and then they hooked onto it. I think it was just mostly through Twitter. I again, I need to follow other places, but I don't have time.
Yeah, same. I think.
But so he managed to get a hype going almost unintentionally. He wasn't trying to hype it. He was just saying, "This is cool. Look what I've made," and everyone's going, "I want it." So he put it on Steam for, was it $4.99?
Yeah, I think it was about that.
And everyone was like, "I'm buying it.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
I'm gonna build some houses."
And it's
And
good to
it
see
became
him.
a thing.
Yeah, it's good to see him still doing it as well.
I'm not even sure if it outstripped Bad North.
Yeah, someone said that they did a GDC talk that got the hype started. Yeah.
Oh right, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
GDC talks are very helpful for developers. That's one of the things I'd always recommend for people.
I love GDC. It's awesome.
It's
really interesting.
It would just
Josh, by the way, Josh works. Facebook are making a game because Facebook are Oculus and Oculus are Facebook, and even more so now the Quest 2 has been launched.
Oh, the Quest 2.
They're actually making, what's it called, venues or?
Yeah.
Facebook, what's it called? It's basically like Facebook creative mode, and you can sign in with your Facebook account and then go into this kind of like virtual oasis type style place and meet up with friends and build stuff and play games. So they are actually making games. But yeah, they are Oculus as well. And yes, the Quest 2 looks incredible.
I think that virtual office, I think it'll be very interesting to see how people utilize it. I'm really interested and intrigued because it's been attempted on the Oculus Rift and stuff, and whilst it's getting there, it's not like to the point where it's worthwhile. Whereas the Quest 2 with the hand tracking and that's already in it of itself, that I dread to think how not dread to think. I'm excited to see how much it's improved because the Quest hand tracking was already groundbreaking. Good. So
it was solid.
If they've improved upon that, and being able to literally, it looked like you were in like Iron Man. Like you can just pin the
Minority Report. It's kind of like
it looks fantastic. I feel like like you're in like the Hunger Games, that those scenes and stuff. And I think it would be really interesting to sort of like just interact with it. It sort of feels like an AR experience more than a VR. It's like a VR. It's a mixture because I'm sure
the see through the look through technology of the helmet is the headset is really good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really exciting. Like, I could just imagine having a workspace just wherever you want. Like, I think that's going to be the big selling point.
That's the thing that makes me dream.
Imagine just going to the park and you sit on a bench and then you're just like this. Oh, people would think you're crazy, but it would be really cool. I think it was... it would be really interesting. I'd love to try it out sometime. Or if the reviews are good enough, then I'll definitely think about getting it.
I'll let you know.
Yes, that would be really great. Yeah, I have the CV1, the Oculus Rift CV1, and that's already that has been really fun to use and stuff. But having the wireless and everything would be really, really interesting because I've only ever played with a wire, so
actually, I've used the Quest quite a bit for the first one, and it is very, very good without the wire. I think a lot of people think the wire isn't much of a problem, and I believe them. I don't think it's much of a problem.
It isn't much of a problem.
But there's always a tinkle in your head, like you can feel, that there's something.
And sometimes you sort of like wrap yourself around it.
Yeah, but once you actually played with the Quest and you've realized, oh wow, I don't have to worry about that. It brings more immersion because you're not worrying about it because you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So instead you just punch the wall or
Yes.
But no, actually the Guardian system's really good, I've got to say as well. It has been very well thought out. So
yeah. I mean,
can't really complain.
How's the performance though? Like, has it been pretty good?
Surprisingly good on the Quest. Like you can play Beat Saber no problem. Super hot works really well. There's a downgrade in graphical fidelity, obviously, compared to the PC because it has to be.
Yeah,
There's no way.
but I think there is that whole the Oculus Link and stuff.
Oh yeah, the Link works really well.
Yeah,
the Link works really well, and plus with the Quest 1, the screen was OLED, so it was actually better quality than the Oculus Rift and things before it.
Right.
The inside-out tracking works like superbly well. Absolutely no problem with it. It's an incredible bit of engineering, to be honest. They've done a really good job, and I was very skeptical when I first tried. I thought it's going to be good, but it can't be that good, you know.
Yeah.
I thought I tried the CV1 in a shop, and I thought, oh, this is really good. It's good. I could see the screen door problem, you know, that everyone talks about instantly, but I found it fun enough. And then I thought, well, this is kind of worth it if you can get a headset that's not too expensive, because I don't want to spend, you know, $1,000 on a headset and then $1,000 to update my PC.
Yeah.
It's an insane amount of money. So when the Quest came out, it was like, okay. And my son was like, I want a Quest. So I was like, okay. So he got a Quest for his birthday, and we went from there. And he, you know, obviously I was able to try his Quest, and was very surprised by it, like super surprised. So with the Quest 2 being such an upgrade, it was a no-brainer for me, having it $100 cheaper, £100 cheaper.
Yeah, it's crazy. The price they're doing it for it's.
Well, you can see why they're doing it at that price. They can afford to do it at that price, and they're probably losing money on headsets, headset. But it's Facebook; they've got money to burn. It's like Amazon;
Yeah,
they could probably give us everything for free, and they wouldn't really matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very interesting time for VR.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how it advances, especially in the next like 5 to 10 years, because I'm, you know, things have gone crazy in the past 5 years already, you know, and imagining that further on is, you know.
Well, and also on the Connect, the Facebook Connect, there was a big talk about AR as well.
Yeah.
And they've basically teamed up with a very big glasses maker who do a lot
that is already like.
So they've got, I think it was Ben Sherman or whatever they're called, glasses. They were going to use that model, that brand, but the company make lots of different high fashion brands. But yeah, I mean, like, you're looking at them trying to get like
putting on glasses and then suddenly
thin air glasses. And I'm thinking, is it Google Glass coming back? Because Google Glass had that technology. Really, it was just a bit of a thicker glass where you could actually see kind of notifications and things in the glass. So be interesting to see what they do with that and whether people will take it up.
Yeah, or if people are going to be more skeptical about it. Yes.
Well, there's the whole problem about Facebook being Facebook and data and privacy and all these things, which are completely valid concerns to have, because who holds to account this kind of size of company with this kind of dear Lord, Google Glass. They tried really hard. Like it was a good concept, but you just look like an idiot.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
I think it was ahead of its time, but the concept was there. It is interesting. But yeah, well, we're nearing the end of the podcast. But is there anyone that you'd like to mention whilst we're wrapping up at all? Like, if there's anyone you think?
Well, there's probably a few things I've noticed which are really good. The people I mentioned in, if you want to look at some good examples about how to get your content out, I would say just look at like Temple Door Games, Games by Milu. If you check out Games by Milu as well, he's done a very good post-mortem of his recent game marketing strategy. And maybe we can put a link somewhere. I'll send you a link to it.
After the.
But anyway, he's got a really good thing. And the only other thing I'd probably say on that whole subject is, if you don't know what you're doing or you feel a bit lost about it, reach out to someone. There's some really good promoters on Twitter. Lauren Moses is one of them with the GME community. Definitely look them up. It's basically just a group of people who are like me and probably better than me, to be honest, at promoting games and things like that. Lauren has had some really good success with Antler Studios and their game. And so they know what they're doing, they know how to push things. And it's like a whole different side of things that you don't have to worry about if you can manage to get into touch with these people and kind of get them helping you, basically.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, go check out Rob in his Twitter. I've actually got the link in the description.
Why doesn't Rob code games? Because Rob has too much to do, and by the time Rob got to code games and believed he could code games, he hadn't got time, because I run my own company and I've got work constantly and I've got a family. So it's kind of like I work, and then I go and spend time with my family. So I don't really have time for games, to be honest. So yeah, it's hard to fit in, basically.
Yeah. Well, so everyone, go check out Rob. His link is in the description, and then after the video I'll put in all the important links that we've mentioned. And hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. See you next Wednesday, where we'll be talking to 2 people at once. And so it should be exciting. No. But yeah, thank you so much, Rob. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and have a good night.
You too. See you later, guys.
See ya.